All right, welcome. So this is a guide on how to get this final project installed and running on your Godot. So you want to go to the link I'm going to provide you. I emailed you this link over here. Once you get to that link, you should see the final project folder, and then inside the final project folder, you should see Jungle Jump. You want to then not select it, but you want to select the final project drop down and download it. And then it should start zipping, and once it's finished zipping, it'll be ready to open and extract. So wait for that to download. So once it finishes download, you want to go to the URL where you downloaded from. You want to right click this and you want to extract all. The window asking you where you want to download should pop up. I'm just gonna download it in the same location I downloaded the zip folder, and then I'm going to extract. Once that's completed, you should be able to see that the final project was extracted. So it's not zipped anymore. You want to double click on the final project. Then you want to double click where it says final project, and then Jungle Jump. You want to just double click to make sure it's there. All right, it's there. You don't want to do anything else right now. You want to then open up your Godot. So you want to close this out. Before you close this out, just make sure you can copy the path that it's located in. So I'm just going to highlight this, Control Copy, or if you're on a Mac, Command Copy. I opened up my Godot, and then when you have your Godot open, you want to go select Import. Import, you want to browse. Make sure you find the location where you have it download. Since I copied that path, I'm just going to paste it over here, and then I'm going to press Enter, and then it's going to take me to the Jungle Jump folder that I extracted. You want to click on this, double click on this, and then select the one that says Project Godot. You want to then open that, and then you want to import and edit. Then the game is going to open. So now that you have this game view, let's run this and see how it's looking. So once you hit play, the game is going to open up, and you can hover your mouse, create play, spacebar to jump, the right click, hold on, put the volume down a little bit on that. So spacebar to jump, the left and right arrow keys to move forward and back. You want to then move through your stage, collect in all these coins. Fast forward. Fast forward to the end. I am then able to capture this, and the game is over. Alternatively, note that if you hit one of these skeleton guys, the game is over, and then you'll be given the option to play again. Alright, so then now that you are back in your Godot Project Manager, let's look through this and let's see what's going on. So, in my main game scene, I have three child nodes. I have the HUD, which is what allows me to press play and the name of the game. I have the level, so let me zoom out a little bit here. I have the level itself, and I have the background. If I toggle the visibility for the HUD, you notice it disappears. If I toggle the visibility for the level, you notice the level disappears. If I toggle the visibility for the background disappears. So let's have an overview about what's happening. If I go into the main script, I get the main go.script, and this is the script of my game that's connecting everything together. I'm not going to go through this piece by piece, but just for you can know, this is the functions, the variables, right? If you notice the variable for the HUD up here, HUD update score on loot collected. So when you collect one of the loots, the score gets updated +1, and what gets updated, it's in the HUD, right? So all of these scripts are connected to each other. So now let's look at the HUD. So if I click my HUD scene, I'd see that my HUD scene is made out of labels. If I click on the label, let me go to 2D over here. If I click on the label, I can see the label of my HUD where I could click play and the game name called Jungle Jump. I could change the name of the game over here. So I select score label, which it should be title, but that's fine. And over here I can say Jungle Jump, or I can say Coin Jump. And I change the name of the start and game label, the message label, and the start button. I can change where it says click play over here, and I can say something like press play, And then the timer. So I'm not going to go too much into these, but just the message label, the start button, and then the timer for waiting for the game to start. All right, and let's move on to the. So now I'm going to go back to my main, and then in my main, let's go to the level. So I am going to toggle the visibility of the HUD for now, and toggle the visibility of the background for now, so I can look at my level. So now to look at my level, I just click on the scene. And then let me move this down so I can have it more visible. And I can see that I have a position node to start the player start position. I have the enemy start position, the enemy start position, the enemy start position where the enemy starts. I could toggle the visibility on that so I can see what's going on. These are the positions. I can see the coins, 1, 2, 3, the coins position, and I have a bag over here and a bag, so a bag of coins, basically, where it starts and where it's located on the map. And these have their own scene, but they're not, the scenes of themselves are not complicated with their scripts. So let's pick one of these coins. Let's look at the scene for that. We can see it's a sprite, zoom in, and we can see it's a collision. So collision, so we know that when you touch it, it gets collected. The sprite, it's the sprite of the coin. Let's go back. Don't save. So we can see the coins, all my coins, all my enemies. So let's look at one of the enemies. So enemies is a start position of where that enemy is going to be started. Same thing for that other enemies, where it's going to be started. And let's look at the coin script. So if I click on the script, I can see the script of the coin. And I can see that if it's collected, then it's going to add 1 point to my loot. All right. All right, so let's go back to the 2D view. And let's look at the tile map, right? So this tile map is what we worked through in class extensively. So let me try to take the visibility out of all of these, right? And then we can look at the tile map a little bit better. So if I select the tile map, I select my tile set tiles over here, I can see which tiles have been set. So this is my tile map, right? I can see these tiles have been set. Can zoom out. I can select them. I can see the collision on them. Collision on them. Collision on them. It's only 1, 2, 3 tiles. And I can see that they have the collision. All right. And then if I want to build, I would just bring it in here. And I would just build my level design better. I could bring some of these in here. Put some of these, etc. So all of these over here are part of my tile set. I can add more ground to the back. So I can hold shift and have a little bit bigger ground. All right, and we know how to do this in class, so we know how to design the level. So design your level to make it look how you have your previous one. All right, so when you hit play, make sure that the visibility is toggled, because if you press play with only the HUD visible, then only the HUD is going to display. So you hit play and you see there's nothing here. So make sure you toggle the visibility of the whole game in order for you to actually see what's going on with the game. And then I can see that the level design that I added was some more ground back here, so I can go back here and see all that ground I added. So if I fall down, the game is over. And I get to play again. And then if you want to add more coins and more things to the game, go to your level, right? This is your level 1. You want to select your scene. Make sure you select your level 1, so your level 1 is selected, and then you can just drag in more coins. So I'm gonna drag in more bunch of coins, drag in more bags, drag in bags. Right? You can also look at which ones are being dragged in by looking at the images, but this are the scenes. And of the coins, bags, you can see the sprite, collision. You could change that sprite to something else if you want it to look different. Right, you can see the collision on it. You could change it to something else if you want. Remember, you could just download those assets, bring them in here, and just replace the sprite over here with whatever asset you want it to look. So let's press play and let's look at the game. I just brought in all those coins, 1 coins, 3 coins, 4 coins, 5 bags. I made myself a little bit tricky over here, but you can mess around. And remember, I can collect more than 5 coins because the game is not triggered to be over until the last bag is collected. So there, the skeleton hit me, the game was over, we could start again. So if you notice, my score is 9, but once I collect this last bag, the score is 9, I collect this last bag, it's 10, and the game is over. So this last bag triggers the game win. Let's look at that. So what triggers the win is the treasure sack. So if I take this treasure sack, which is different than bag and coins, and I drag it in to my level 1, make sure it's select level 1 over here. I dragged it as a child of treasure. So let me right click this and let me delete this node. So I want to make sure I select level 1. So I'm have my level 1 tile map selected. And then I want to drag treasure sack on the tile map. And then let's press play and see what happens. Now you see I landed on a treasure sack, so I moved the treasure sack over. Now there's 2 treasure sacks on here. I grab the treasure sack, I win. So the treasure sack is what triggers the win. Let's look at that. Here's the treasure sacks. I can see that they have their own sprite. So the treasure sack looks like a treasure sack that has collision 2D. So it doesn't look, let's look at the script. Doesn't look any different. The script doesn't look any different here than it looks as a bag script. Looks like it's the same script as loop. What's different is in my main script. My main script is saying, let's look at this a little bit closer. So let me zoom out a little bit. It says, if item name find treasure sack, so if the item name is treasure sack, is greater than or equal to -1 and the player is active, meaning that I'm not, the player is still active and not dead, then it triggers the player win function. So it wins and then it triggers the HUD to show the win. So this is what that logic is happening. Right here, this is the win. And then it plays the audio that wins and it gets loaded from my res audio files down here. So this is the file that gets loaded. Right, so this is happening here. Alright, and remember if you toggle visibility, it's not going to show in the game. So then if I toggle this treasure sack, it's not going to show at the end. So the trigger win is going to be here. So you can move around where you want to put the coins and where you want to put the trigger to win. Alright, now to add enemies to your level, you want to click level 1 over here. And then you want to come down here where it says enemy. Select the enemy start position first. Make sure you have level 1 highlighted. So enemy start position first. Want to drag them where you want them to start. Click it here. And you just need to bring in the start position because we're doing that in our code where it's bringing them into a group. So where's our code? Oh, let's go to our script. Let's go to our HUD, our main. So right here, enemy start position is adding it to our group, enemy start position, and it's adding add child enemy programmatically. So all we need to do is, let's look at 2D, where it says player start position, below that, enemy start position. Just grab the enemy start position scene. Don't grab the enemy scene, you'll need to do that. And the enemy start position, you could just grab in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're gonna have a bunch of enemies here. We all start here. Right? You couldn't even put one in here. I think it might be stuck in there. Let's see. So let's see how that looks. Before that, pay attention to this guy. This guy I dragged in as the enemy, as an extra. So this one is not being made programmatically. This one is being me drag him in here. So I drag him in here and watch where he's located when I press play. So I press play. You see how he's located here, but he's not going to be able to do anything because he's not part of the script. He's just the enemy there. I press play. He disappears. Oh. So I moved where the player starts so we can see all the enemies that I brought in. So where the player starts, I moved them all the way to the left. So the player starts over here. You can see the enemies that fall in. The other ones, they just fall out. You can see the other ones over there. So in my level 1, the enemy start positions, I have them all here. And my player start position, I can move them to start somewhere else. So if I want them to start up here, let's say I zoom out, I want them to start up here, I can make them start up here. Press play, let's look at this. See, he starts from the top, falls down with everybody else, and dies. So you want to make sure you design a game so it's not like that. All right. The next step would be to look at the background, right? So I think the background is the last part. We look at the background. We can see that it's just parallax layers of sprites. Or we could change the background. We could just change that texture map over here, so we can change the texture, but we could leave it for here for now because that's a background that matches the game. So yeah, and let's go back to the main. So we have these three nodes, our HUD, our level 1 where we're going to do our work with our map bin with our players. I mean our enemies and our player start position. We can add the coins, the bags, the treasure sack, etc. Our enemy over here. Should be deleted because I'm not using this anymore. So right click, where's the delete nodes down here? Delete nodes, all right. And make sure that your enemy start position that you add in is below your level. You don't want start position to be a child of enemy start position because this right here is not going to work. You want the enemy start position to be a child of level 1. So the line should be child player start position. The line should be start position, enemy start position. The line should be enemy start position here. So you see how this right here is no good. You want it to be a child of level 1. And if I did that, it brings it down here. But then I have all these positions that then can just start it up. I could bring this higher if I want up here. So enemies, players, coins, all children of level 1. Right, treasure sacks to win the game, bags to collect, coins to collect, treasure sack to win the game, coins, players, enemies. Just build your level like this how you want it. And your tile map, select your tile map. Make sure you select your tile map here. You can see it here and then start building. So you can start building. You can select a tile set. I suggest you leave this part alone for now. Just click tile map again. Make sure when you click tile map, then you could just drag in the tiles that already been mapped. Zoom out, zoom in, zoom out. We could just start dragging them in. And then we could just start building the level, even a crazier design. Right? Which is not suggested because the level of design that we have now adheres to good practices, but if you want to do something crazy, then you can. Let's see how that looks right now. And let's move my player, my enemy start position, not my enemy, my player start position, which is this one, over here. All right, and then let's play and see what happens. The player cannot be below the designated ground. So the designated ground is this. Anything below that, the camera is not going to follow. And if there's something that he can land on below that, it's going to trigger it's not going to trigger a game over. He's just going to be able to stand there. All right. So in order to trigger game over, you need to be able to fall. You need to trigger below the line level. So right here is going to trigger game over because the player fell below this line around here. And once it falls down outside of the canvas, past a certain amount of measurements, of pixels is going to trigger game over. Down here it's not going to trigger game over. It needs to fall down here in order to trigger game over. So be careful when you're designing the stage. This line right here is the line that the camera is going to follow the player. So the player can go up and down to this line, but this ground level, the camera's not going to follow anything below the ground level. All right.